Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday, March 29th, 2017 episode of Free Webinar Wednesdays. This is Eric Cook, and I'm with WSI Digital, where we work with businesses and organizations in helping them better understand and leverage the power of the internet as a strategic business tool. You can learn more about me and WSI online at www.poweredbywsi.com. With me is my good friend and Free Webinar Wednesday partner, Mr. Jeff Simpkins. Jeff, say hello to everybody out there in the wonderful world of Free Webinar Wednesdays.
Hello, everybody. This is Jeff Simpkins. I'm with Community Bank Consulting, Inc., and you can learn more about me and Community Bank Consulting, Inc. online at www.communitybankconsulting.com.
Cool. I'm wearing shorts, Jeff.
I am as well. I was on a conference call earlier with someone that is in Breckenridge, Colorado, and she was commenting that they have fresh snow on the ground this morning. And I commented back, well, we're in our second phase of spring here. We've already had the initial bloom, and now the second and third phase of blooming plants is starting.
Of course. So anyway, even though I woke up this morning and when I let the dogs out, there was frost on the grass, I said, nope, I'm wearing shorts and flip-flops because I'm embracing the summer lifestyle, even if it's not summer. My brother and his family are spending spring break down in Florida, and I'm getting these pictures of him and the kids at the beach. And I said, well, if I can't be there, at least maybe I'm going to dress like I can feel like I can be there. So that's what I'm going with.
I think last night or night before last, I had a little summer urge, and I actually stepped on the first step of the pool and covered my feet up in the pool. So technically, I guess you can say I have been in the pool this season.
Cool. Oh, well, I got a couple of things that I think we want to chat about today on Free Webinar Wednesdays. And I'm going to start off with something that I don't think will be very polarizing, and kind of share our WSI cycling team and kind of bring everybody up to speed a little bit on that. Not that we're expecting people to pick up their bikes and start riding with the team, but we as a WSI business here in Battle Creek have partnered with a local bike shop and have been a sponsor of the cycling team for several years now. And we just got new jerseys and designs that I'm really excited about, and we've got a charitable component that comes with it. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time just introducing people to the WSI cycling idea and share an app that we're using that you all can use. And I think we've talked about it before, but it bears mentioning again because I see some new faces. And then I also want to spend a little bit of time talking about a recent announcement that's made the news about it looks like if our president signs, and I don't know if that's happened yet, internet service providers will begin to be able to sell our browsing history to the highest bidder. And is that something that we should be concerned about? How do we combat that? Seeing more and more people talking about utilizing VPNs to hide their identity or using incognito browsing so that cookies and other sorts of information maybe doesn't get stored. So I wanted to chat a little bit about that as well, with the caveat that this is not intended to be a political discussion, although we may kind of go down that road and we might have to get reminded to come back. But I'm looking at it more as a technologist, more as a digital marketer, more as a consumer as to, does this have any potential upside? And we've talked about, browser tracking and content customization and, what that ultimately will mean for me as a user of the internet. But now that the rule has been reversed, that used to say you couldn't sell that information, I just want to make sure people are aware of that and understand what is kind of coming along. So with that, I do see, like I said, some fresh faces. So we'll do our perfunctory housekeeping items. Today's show and all shows are being recorded and made available for replay at freewebinarwednesdays.com. So you can hop over there and check out this show and past shows if you want to get caught up on stuff. I've had a couple of really nice comments actually about our LinkedIn, Facebook discussion from last week, Jeff. So if you are joining us today and you weren't with us last week, you might want to hit that up because we covered some pretty cool things with regards to some Facebook changes. And Facebook is now doing something even more different, going more focused at Snapchat, and I've not even had a chance to play with that yet with their Facebook Direct option. So stay tuned. And then also, if you have comments, thoughts, feedback, opinions, good, bad, or indifferent, please feel free to use the chat functionality in your control panel, which is located probably floating over on the right-hand side of your monitor, and then toss in a comment, especially when we get to the whole identity sharing, selling your information. I'm very curious to hear what our audience has to say. And if you're listening to this in replay mode, you can certainly post that information into the comments on the blog post that you have gotten the link to. But if you're listening live, feel free to chime in and let us know what you think. So let's talk about fun stuff first. Now that I'm wearing shorts, actually got out on my bike in our new kit yesterday or 2 days ago in shorts and went for a nice 20-mile ride. And so we've updated the look and feel of our WSI cycling jerseys, and it's been pretty cool. So so we've got a little website that probably needs a facelift, and we've got a couple of posts that are coming up here shortly with regards to a couple of gravel road races that our team has done. But our team members are doing a pretty good job of using the hashtag WSI cycling in any of the posts that we send out to either Twitter or to Instagram or to Facebook. So if you do have an interest and you're kind of wondering what's going on in the world of bicycling with WSI here, you can always use that hashtag to kind of check things out. And you can see we've got some photos and some other stuff that's kind of happening. Our buddy Dan Freyer is certainly a hardcore. This is a little bit older, but he's probably one of the more hardcore riders for our team that gets up every morning at dark 30. And if he's not doing CrossFit, he's on his fat bike or his road bike spinning around. So it's been kind of cool to watch him go through. So, but one of the things that is a requirement of being part of our team is not only are you racing, but we also have some volunteer requirements. So we typically will participate in 5K or 10K runs, and we'll do like a bicycle patrol, which allows us to kind of monitor traffic and ensure that, you know, cars aren't being all crazy on the routes. But the other component that we have is a charitable component. And we like to get all of our riders to raise at least a couple $100 for a charity of their cause. And this is kind of in homage to my good friends, the Thomases, who lost a daughter to cancer at the tender age of 9. And I've kind of made it my mission to do an annual fundraiser for neuroblastoma. And I've been able to tie in bicycling and fundraising to really take the sport that I love and the fundraising effort to kind of help support Christy's memory and the Thomas family and the fight against child cancer. And there's a cool little app that I've talked about that I want to mention called Charity Miles. And I'm just going to do a quick little search because I think there's a website as well. I think it's probably charitymiles.org. And for any of you that are out there that like to go for walks, maybe ride a bicycle, maybe run a little bit, the Charity Miles app is something that we've encouraged all of our team members to use because it allows for you to go out while you're doing an activity and essentially uses the GPS capabilities on your device to monitor how far you've traveled. And if you are going for a run or a walk, the average kind of donation per mile is right around 25 cents. And if you go for a bike ride, because you're able to travel much further distances, that drops to about probably around 10 cents per mile. But the way that this works, and I thought that there was a catch to it, I was trying to figure out what the deal was. The way that this works is fitness-minded companies that are interested in advertising to people that like to ride their bike, that like to go out and walk, that like to run, that are interested in maintaining their health, companies like Johnson and Johnson and Aetna Health and Shivani Yogurt and some others, they actually sponsor and for an opportunity to present advertisements or, hey, today's ride was sponsored by Johnson and Johnson, and you tweet that information out. So now Johnson and Johnson is getting associated with somebody that's going for a bike ride or a run. It gives them some additional exposure that they would not necessarily otherwise have an opportunity to get by kind of attaching themselves to active individuals. And in exchange for that, instead of traditional advertising, what they're doing is they're allowing charity miles to then take the money that they pay and divert that to a charity of your cause. And so you can see a little screenshot here. You got the ASPCA, Stand Up to Cancer, Wounded Warrior Project, Michael J. Fox, his association is in here. So there's really, other than allowing your device to run in the background and kind of know how far you've traveled, there's really no strings attached to you as the user of the service. Now, conspiracy theorists could say, well, the service is tracking you and it knows where you're at. And I mean, that's the case with any of the fitness apps that are out there. But the nice part is, if you're going out to do something, all you have to do is basically turn it on. And then when you're done, if you want, you can take a picture, you can post and tweet it, you can present it to Facebook, and then you can brag about, hey, I just rode 20 miles, and it'll bring in the Charity Miles URL, it'll bring in the Johnson & Johnson tag if it's on Twitter. And then what we try to do as a team is when those posts are made, we try to make sure that we associate the WSI Cycling hashtag with it, so that Charity Miles or Stand Up to Cancer or Wounded Warrior, any of the charities that are getting kind of tweets, if they're monitoring their Twitter activity or they're monitoring their Facebook activity, a lot of times they'll retweet that, they'll say thank you, and it's just kind of a cool way of making sure that you not only are taking steps to get healthier, but you're pushing stuff out into the world that is going to make it a better place. And the charitable component really is kind of cool. So I think the last time I went out and did a ride, I think it presented something to me that said like $28,000 or $26,000 was or has been raised as a result of my efforts. So you can see, here's a quick little screenshot that I'm going to pull over. So you can see I did Stand Up to Cancer. I did my bike ride for 20 miles. And everybody that has participated in the Charity Miles basically has generated over $250,000 for Stand Up to Cancer. And that's pretty powerful because it's no money out of my pocket. There's really nothing other than I just got to remember to turn it on. A couple of other fun things that are kind of a little bit of a competitive bent. There is the option when you get into Charity Miles where you can actually create or join a team. So you can search for example, Pedaling with a Purpose is a charity that I kind of have founded, but WSI Cycling. So you can join teams, or if there's a group of individuals that you typically walk with or bike with or get together and run, you can create an individual team. And what's really neat about the team function is you can go in and you can actually look at all the members of the team and you can compare how many miles each one has done. So when we get into the Charity Miles team for a WSI Cycling, we're usually teasing Kevin, who is kind of the leader of Charity Miles. He's gone out and ridden the most miles so far. So people are always trying to make sure that when they go for a ride, they turn the app on so their miles get counted and kind of a leaderboard mentality. But as spring is starting to rear its head and we're spending a little bit more time outside, and we're going to maybe talk about something that might be somewhat of a bummer, I just wanted to paint a picture of a positive thing, and the charitable component I think is pretty cool. So, Jeff, I think we've talked about this before. I don't know if you actually had downloaded this yet, or if it's still not something that you pulled, but I'd be very interested in any of your thoughts. I think you're on mute.
Okay. I was on
There we
mute.
go. Yes.
I think it is a really cool thing. I have not done anything with it at this point.
Well, you see, you need to pick another marathon in order for you to decide that you want to. So if you've got an event that you're training for, or you're somebody, now I don't think it's the motivational, it's going to get you out to do stuff that you might not otherwise do. But for a lot of people that might just walk a couple of times a week, I will tell you, if like up here in the winters, especially when we get further up north, a lot of times what my wife will do is if it's really, really nasty outside, she'll get in the car and drive to Walmart, and she'll just walk around Walmart for a while, and she'll get her steps in. And of course, you're wearing a pedometer, you can track your steps because that just kind of measures your steps. If you're using a service like this that requires GPS, most Walmarts that you went into, if you've ever been on the phone talking to somebody and you happen to go into Walmart, it's like going into a giant Faraday box where all of a sudden, or a Faraday cage, your signal drops and you're just, so it may not work if you're walking indoors or if you like to do mall walking. But from an outside perspective, it's got a pretty cool component to it. So that's my little public service announcement. Make the world a better place. Get healthy and find a charity that you're passionate about and raise a little bit of money. So it's kind of a cool thing. Make that your 2017 resolution. So anybody that decides they want to do that, post back in the comments and let me know if I've convinced anybody to download the app. So switching gears a little bit, and I'm also curious from a comment perspective, how many people have actually heard about this? I've seen it on the news a little bit, but being somewhat of a geek myself, I've been paying attention to this quite a bit. I listen to a lot of podcasts that have got technologists chatting about this. And so it used to be that internet service providers like Verizon and AT&T and Comcast and others were forbidden from taking your information and basically selling it. Now, they could always get subpoenaed for it. They could get a legal requirement to say, hey, you got to give us this information because we're getting in an investigation or whatever the case may be. But they've never really been able to monetize this as a, hey, we've got some really good data. How would you like to see all the pages that Eric Cook is browsing on his computer? And then as an advertiser, I might like to see that information and use that as a way to present me with ads or to send me email or to whatever the case is. So there's one side of the argument that says, well, if you're using a browser that doesn't have any sort of, cloaking, pretty much your browser activity is being monitored anyway. Because when I visit TechCrunch, which is the site that I'm on now, if they're using any sort of tracking pixel or behavior monitoring, they can see that I'm on their site. They can see that I've been here for quite some time looking at articles. And if I leave TechCrunch and I bounce around the rest of the internet or I go into Facebook, I could very well be seeing advertisements from TechCrunch because it knows that I'm there. But now they've kind of taken it up a notch. And, the advertisement that shows on my screen from Verizon, that might just be a random advertisement that shows up, or that might be an advertisement that shows up because I was on the Verizon website within the last couple of weeks upgrading to their unlimited plan for bandwidth. And so I don't know whether I've been remarketed to. So that, I guess, kind of paints a broad brush picture of what's going on here. So before I jump in and start talking about things like incognito browsing and what that may or may not do as it relates to this, and some of the other services like VPNs, I'm going to hand the microphone over to my good buddy Jeff and see, because I think you've also been kind of keeping an eye on this as well. So I'm interested in getting your perspective. Any positives that you see out of this? Is it all negatives? And what, if anything, are you mostly concerned about?
Yeah, I'm pretty active in keeping up with what's going on in the world and in the U.S., so I do have a good bit of familiarity with this. As you pointed out, this new legislation in the United States, it doesn't change what's happened to date with sites like Facebook, Google, and things like that. What it does is it gives the larger providers like Time Warner, which is now I can't remember, Spectrum. They've changed their name to Spectrum. Comcast, Verizon, the larger providers can now track and sell all of your information. So the folks that have concerns over this legislation are saying the reason they have concerns is that in the past, up until this new legislation gets signed, it was not possible, or it was not legal for providers that had access to all of your browsing data to access the information. There was an article in the New York Times this morning. Actually, I think there were either 2 or 3 separate articles in the New York Times this morning that specifically talked about this legislation. And they made the point that if you make a voice phone call on your cell phone, and they used the example, for example, if you were shopping for a car, it would be protected. It would be against the law for your cell phone carrier to sell that information to someone else, that you had placed a call to an auto dealership. If, on the other hand, you use the internet service on your cell phone, after this legislation goes into place, it will be perfectly legal for them to sell that data. Now, here's a discussion item, Eric, I thought about, and I'm kind of interested in your thoughts on it. It appears to me that means if we're using our voice data on our cell phone, we're protected. However, if we're using our data plan and making a voice over IP call on our cell phone, it would appear, based on what I've read so far, we are not protected.
That is, yes. So I would interpret it that exact same way. And I know some of the newer phones now provide the ability to switch over to what's referred to as Wi-Fi calling. So I know on my Google Pixel, for example, if I'm at home and I've got a strong Wi-Fi signal, but Verizon, which is my carrier, for whatever reason I can't get a good signal on Verizon, if I have Wi-Fi calling enabled, then the Verizon network can make the call to say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and prioritize data to be used to place your call through a Wi-Fi calling, and we'll still connect you, but we're not going to use the actual cellular network like we would if it were a regular phone call. We're going to go ahead and use the data, which now runs through the internet pipes. So one of the things that Jeff makes a good point on is, if this is something that bothers you and you have not looked to see whether your phone, and I don't know if the iPhone capabilities, if that's at the phone level or the carrier level, but it would make good sense for you to review your calling options. And if you decide, you know what, I don't want my phone calls recorded, or the potential to have my phone calls recorded, then I would suggest that you turn Wi-Fi calling off. And then think about, and the slippery slope on that is, okay, well, does that also mean if I use Skype to do a call? So if I Skype Jeff and we're texting back and forth, because Skype has a certain level of protection, just like, any of the other chatting, does the internet service provider give the ability or have the ability to see what Jeff and I are talking about in Skype, whether it's through text or screen share, GoToMeeting, for example? A lot of you may be joining through voice over IP via GoToMeeting. So I'm not exactly sure if I don't know where the buck stops and the buck ends, because I don't know what data is available to the internet service providers, other than the fact that they may just see that Eric and Jeff communicate a lot on Skype, but they don't know what the actual Skype conversation is, because Skype keeps that protected. So
So I think a good point for us to make here is we very quickly asked what seemed like a simple question, and to me, simple. It became apparent very quickly that this is not a simple issue at all. As of about 6:30 this morning, I can't remember if you made this point here on the show or if it was in our discussion before going on air, but as of 6:30 this morning, the legislation has passed the House and the Senate, and it's ready to go to President Trump's desk for a signature. It had not been signed as of this morning, and I haven't seen anything come through any of my news services that indicate it's been signed so far today. The big group that is listed as having significant concerns over the legislation right now, I think, is the ACLU. Interesting in the vote, when things like this have come up in the past, it's been very much voted along party lines. There actually are some politicians that are in the party that typically promoted this legislation that have switched sides to have concerns about it as well.
Yeah.
So Eric, how about if we move our discussion now and talk about some of the, assuming that this will go through, let's talk about some of the options that we have to protect our privacy.
Sure. So some people may be familiar with the concept of incognito or private browsing. And if you're not, I'll just do a quick little overview. And from a digital perspective, a lot of times we'll get asked by clients that will say, well, I want to know, where my website ranks, or when I do a Google search for mortgage loans in Battle Creek, does my bank show up, or whatever the case may be. And one thing to keep in mind, especially if you are using a browser where you're logged in. So you can see I'm on Chrome right now. I'm logged in with my account. So if I hop over to Gmail, use any site that knows that it's Eric, it's powered by WSI, what happens in search is search engines are going to try to give you information that it thinks that you're very interested in. And if I have been spending a tremendous amount of time, let's kind of use Verizon, we'll try to do a non-bank analogy here, stepping out of the box a little bit. But you can see that I'm a Verizon customer. I spend a lot of time at Verizon. I've been looking at kind of their services. If I go online and I start looking for cell phone providers, and granted, there's not a lot of them, but one of the things that could potentially and most likely is influencing those search results is my past browsing behavior, because Google's going to see that either I've spent a lot of time on Verizon, I'm interested, I'm clicking on banners. So that can work in both directions. And so if I spend a lot of time and Google thinks that the interest that I have is in Verizon, it may very well reinforce that interest with the ad selections that it provides me in the results. And okay, I'm going to flip back over to banking. We've seen where some of the bankers that we've talked to have been spending a lot of time on other banks' websites. They're doing competitive research. What's the minimum balance for their checking account? Does their bank have a Facebook icon on their website? Are they blogging? Is their content being added? So they spend a lot of time on other banks' websites, and then they go in and they do a Google search for mortgage loans, and they contact us and they say, when I Google search, everybody else shows up but me. And when I ask the question, are you using incognito search? They're like, what's that? If you're spending a lot of time outside of your own institution, you're sending signals through your browsing behavior that you're interested in all these other banks. And if you've been exposed to the banks, if you've been cookied or tracked or targeted or remarketed by those banks, it's going to increase the likelihood that you're going to see information about those banks, your competition. And so when you hop in and actually take a look, it's not going to be a surprise that you may not see a lot of information about your institution or your business, because Google's going to think that you're interested in all these other places. So what we typically suggest, and you can get access to this, Firefox has the private browsing option as well, but you can go into Chrome, for example, and if you click on the little three dots, you can see that there's an option here for what's known as an incognito window. And so this comes up, and you can see it's a totally different color scheme. So it's black. You've got the little spy guy up here with the little, private eye hat. And it says that you have gone incognito, and there are certain things that you now are hiding, but under this new proposed legislation, there are certain things that it's not going to hide. And so if you've never gone incognito before, it's a good idea to review what it actually says here. And so you can kind of take a look, and I'll blow this up. It says you've gone in, an incognito tab's not going to stick around. You're not going to get cookied. Based off of your browsing activity, you're not going to get remarketed to or any of those sorts of things, because when you do a search, that history doesn't get saved. It's like clearing your cache every time you get out of your browser. And so this is, one way to try to decrease the likelihood. I tell people, if it's Christmas time and you're on Amazon and you're doing shopping for the family, go into an incognito browser and shop, because after you're done, you're not going to get remarketed. If you're using a regular browser and you're buying your kid a hoverboard for Christmas, then the kid gets on the same computer or the tablet that you're using, they're going to see a lot of hoverboard advertisements, and they might put two and two together and realize, oh, great, mom and dad have been shopping for a hoverboard or an Echo or any other, a PlayStation 4. So browser cookies and tracking can ruin the Christmas surprise, if you will. So using an incognito browser allows you to do that. Yes.
It's probably worth mentioning as well that if you're using Safari or Chrome on a mobile device, an Android device, an iPhone, an iPad, any of the tablets, pick your variety, the incognito version of the browser is available there as well.
It is, absolutely. So it's formatted a little differently. It's going to still, like if it's Chrome incognito, you're still going to see it a little spy guy hat with the glasses. But you can certainly use these incognito or private browsing or secret mode, whatever it's called. You can use those on mobile devices as well. Good point. So those are some of the things that an incognito or a private browsing session will allow you to hide. If you kind of take a look, and I'm going to shrink the screen down a little bit, there are other services that you can install in your browser, and again, I'm using Chrome, but called extensions. And extensions add additional functionality to your browser and allow you to do things much easier, or so you can see across the top, I've got a little tool that allows me to check web accessibility. I've got Buffer and Hootsuite, which makes it easy for me to share articles and information via social media. I've got Evernote, which is a clipper service that I use. If I find an article that I think is really cool that I might want to use for inspiration on a blog post, or I decide I want to use that for maybe material for an upcoming presentation. So there's a lot of these little extensions that I've added that I have enabled. And you can see when I go into incognito mode, there's really only 2 items in here that I have that have carried over. And when you add an extension, you can say, I want to allow that in incognito mode, or I don't. And so one of them is this kind of little app that allows me to resize a window so I can check what a site looks like on different screen resolutions. And the other one is a service that I use called LastPass, which, speaking of privacy, for $12 a year, you're not going to find a cooler, more useful app to help protect your passwords and your privacy than a little service like LastPass. I would highly recommend, even if you just get the free version, to manage your passwords and get all that information out from behind your keyboard on a sticky note or in an Excel file on your computer called passwords.xls. LastPass, I've been using it now for about a year and a half, and I absolutely love it. So keep those passwords nice and safe and secure. So that's what these little guys are here, extensions. What an incognito session does not do, and you can see, you're not invisible. It doesn't hide your information from your ISP. Boom, right there's the issue. You can't, well, I don't care what Congress does. I don't care what President Trump does. I'm still just going to use an incognito browser. This information is still getting carried through because while the browser's not remembering your history, the internet service provider is getting access to it, and they're going to know what's going on. So if you hop into incognito because you want that to be the secret area where you can go, do investigations on your competitors or, whatever else, know that this information is available to the ISPs, and now it is available for you for it to be sold. So you can click on the more info, and that takes you to kind of a little support page over at Google that talks about kind of this into a little bit more information. But an incognito session or a private browsing session or whatever you want to call it, that's not a solution to this proposed issue that is before us. So not to kind of be the wet blanket on all of this, but an incognito window is not going to keep you secret. What I do now, and I'm going to bring over a little program. So we do a lot of web development for the financial services industry, and that's a pretty sensitive industry, obviously. And what we have started doing is we make sure that anytime a customer or anybody from our team wants to get logged into the back end of a website to make an update, we are restricting access to only a known IP address. And if you visit, this is a service called TorGuard that we subscribe to. If you visit TorGuard, this will come up and it'll show you what IP address you're using. It'll tell you who you're using for your internet service provider. And there's a couple of other things that you can check. And so this is essentially confirming that I'm on an AT&T wireless hotspot right now, and this is my IP address. The reason that we're using TorGuard is it has the ability to provide what's known as a VPN, a virtual private network. It can anonymize your traffic. This will basically tunnel your information and keep whatever it is that you're doing from the prying eyes of your internet service provider. And to take it a step further, there's an extra fee that you can actually pay to get what's known as a dedicated IP address, which is why we're using the service. So when I travel and I'm at a conference or a convention or a bank school and I get on wireless internet or I fire up my hotspot, it's going to give me a different IP address that's not been approved for any of our websites to edit. However, I start up TorGuard. TorGuard then allows me to get that one single IP address that only I have. Now I'm using an internet protocol address that has been put in the whitelist for all of our sites, and I can get logged in and I can access what I need to and support our clients. And so there's and I don't think we get any sort of affiliate revenue off of this. So, but I know the FCC is pretty stringent. But I can tell you, Mark, who works in our office, he actually has got a coupon code that TorGuard has provided that if you do decide that you would like to use this service, even if you want to get the dedicated IP address as well, the cost will be half, and it's on a lifetime basis. It's billed annually. It comes out to right around $56 a year. So there is a cost to it. It's not a lot, but in a lot of the articles that I've been now seeing, a lot of people are now starting to say, time to get a VPN, time to get a VPN. And even if you take a look at the comments that were posted, I believe this has a comment thread below it. If you scroll down, you can see the comments and you just do a search for, so we're going to do a control F VPN, you can see that there's 16 mentions to VPN service from people that are kind of going through commenting about how a VPN, and so an incognito private browser session isn't going to address this, but using a service like TorGuard, there's a couple of other ones out there that we have also tested and tried, but TorGuard seems to be probably the easiest one to use. It takes a little bit of time to get it set up, but for less than $60 a year, It's a nice little peace of mind. It was a functional item for us just so that we can get access to making page changes for our clients. But I will tell you, this now has a completely different benefit to it that really wasn't something that I was considering to be a huge benefit, but now certainly do. So I'm going to hit pause, hand the microphone back over to Jeff, and if you are giving consideration to a tour guide instance or something similar to this, or if it's going to limit your utilization of the internet moving forward, I mean, what sorts of behaviors are you thinking that you're going to change as a result of, like you said, assuming that it gets the signature and becomes an approved thing that we have to deal with?
Well, it's probably worth mentioning that for those of you that are accessing corporate services and are already using a VPN, you already have some of these security features built in when you're using a VPN for work purposes. Do you want to comment on that, Eric?
Well, yeah. So, and I don't know where the daisy chain ends, but if you're getting a VPN, because we do have some of our clients that are allowed to work remotely, but they have to VPN into the office to get access to their web server for like OWA or Office 365 to be able to get email. So if you're tunneling in that way, my gut tells me most of those policies probably prohibit kind of just ad hoc browsing, because again, if you're VPN as a bank and you're connected to the bank's network to get access to your email, you're probably also being restricted by what sites are allowed within the financial institution. And most of the bank customers that we work with have still prohibited sites like Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter to be able to be accessed on the bank's network due to security or productivity, reputational issues. And so while a VPN in a corporate environment certainly will keep you protected to an extent, you also have to realize that anything that you're doing now, while it may not be able to be sold to the highest bidder by the internet service provider, is still going to be fully available and accessible to your company. And so your organization that you work for is still going to be able to see what you're doing, even though AT&T or Spectrum can't take that information and sell it out to advertisers. So
yeah, I notice when I access the internet in the Charlotte area using my AT&T cell phone, that the IP address actually registers it as Atlanta, which I would assume is where the AT&T data center that the data is flowing through is located.
Yep. So, if I guess a couple of things on ClearGuard. If you are interested in the coupon code, and unfortunately I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but if you are interested in the coupon code and you'd like to sign up, shoot me an email or respond to the meeting reminders. Pretty much everybody knows how to get a hold of me. So get in touch, Eric@poweredbywsi.com if you don't know. And I can get you the coupon code, and that will give you 50% off. And when you purchase the VPN service, you can buy the VPN as well as the dedicated IP. And that is good for a one-time 50% off, and then that recycles on an annual basis. If you buy just the regular VPN service and you get 50% off, and then you come back later and decide you want to add the static IP, so you've got the same internet protocol address, that would not allow you to get the 50% off on that. That's what I mean by a one-time use. So if you think that's something that you'd want, put both of them in your shopping cart and buy it at the same time. So let me know, and I'll be happy to share that with you. The other thing that this does do, however, is for my example, I have a dedicated IP address that's been registered to the United States. If you've ever traveled internationally or even just popped over to Canada, which technically speaking is still international travel, and you try to go and hop on your laptop or open up your iPad and go to Netflix or try to use some other service, you may not see the same shows. You may not see even the capability. It might say content is not allowed in this area, because you get on and you're using a connectivity from Rogers, for example. When Amazon sees that, you may not be able to get into your Amazon Prime movies, or when Netflix sees that, sorry, we don't offer that service. If you open up your TorGuard and you get your IP address, and it says that you're using an IP that's registered to the United States, even though I'm sitting in Canada, I now am, to the internet, using an internet IP address that is a United States-based IP address. So then I can go on my computer and I can hop over and I can get to Netflix, I can get to Amazon Prime movies, I can get to all of the sites that I would normally be able to get to in the United States. Mark made the comment when we were having a conversation with a client just the other day. He says, yeah, you can still watch House of Cards from Taiwan. So not that I have any plans of visiting Taiwan anytime soon, but that does provide you with the capabilities. Now, it may slow things down a little bit depending on where you're traveling and how it kind of routes through the internet to get access to that. But you can basically tunnel through and get that internet address regardless of where you're at, which increases your availability to U.S.-based services. So yeah. So a couple of other advantages. I think touring and BitTorrents. There's also, and kind of address the elephant in the room, we certainly do not condone or breaking, privacy or sharing illegal files. And I think that's when people hear the word Tor, they think of maybe like Napster or other kind of services that allowed you to essentially get all sorts of stuff for free without paying for it. That is definitely not why we are using TorGuard. It certainly opens the opportunity because it makes you much more difficult to trace and to track. But we're using it for all of the positive reasons, not because I want to hide on the internet and do all sorts of bad stuff. But in full disclosure, that is the reason why people use these, because they are doing stuff that they don't want people to know about. But don't do that, because that's bad, and you're not supposed to be doing bad stuff. So remember, we talked about positive things at the beginning of this, and raising money for charity and helping out little kids with cancer. Don't take my TorGuard conversation and turn it into an opportunity to start ripping off movies and downloading stuff without proper authorization. That's not cool. So those, I guess, are the two main things, from a charity / and then kind of talking about privacy that I had on my little list of things that I wanted to share today. So, Mr. Simpkins, anything else that you'd like to maybe offer up?
No, I appreciate you recommending the discussion on privacy and introducing some tools that, if for those of us that feel like it's worthwhile to protect our private data, some options for us.
Yep. So anyway, I guess it's the world we live in. It's a digital society, and this stuff is just going to be kind of more and more important to people. And it is a capitalist world, and people are always looking to make money. So it's just a matter of what you do with that now that you know the info, and how do you protect yourself. So couple of announcements for next week. We are going to take next week off. Not available, so we will post a note and we'll cancel the meeting. So hopefully we won't send reminders out through the GoToWebinar system. So we will miss you next week. And then again, if you're interested in getting that coupon code, just send me an email, even if you're watching this on replay, eric@poweredbywsi.com, and just put TorGuard coupon code in the subject. and we'll make sure that you go ahead and get access to that. So if it's something, and even if it doesn't work out, it's, you know, 50, 60 bucks in the grand scheme of things. I don't know about you, Jeff, but I've spent 50 or 60 bucks on stuff that I've never even used, other than maybe once or twice. So even if it's a trial, you can still get some value out of it. So, all right. Well, with that, we'll wrap a little bit early. We're 8 minutes under the top of the hour, so that'll allow you an opportunity to get an extra couple bites of your sandwich, or go for a little walk, raise a little money for somebody on Charity Miles, or if you've not done so, take the 8 minutes and actually download the app and get it configured and plan your next event. Go for a walk after work and raise a little money. Do some good for the rest of the world. So thanks for joining us here at freewebinarwednesdays.com. We'll get the archive and recording up on our website. And while we won't see you next week, we will see you following weeks right here at freewebinarwednesdays.com. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye.